Hi, thanks for joining. I'm your host, Chris Gennaro. My co-host is Rizk, and today we have Vince from Evoken. How you doing?
Good, man. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Good. So you're the drummer of the band,
Hmm?
and you're going to be the sole representative today unless somebody else joins.
Yeah.
Let's start off by talking about Hypnagogia. I'm going
Gogia.
to fuck this name up so
It's
badly.
okay. Hypnagogia.
Hypnagogia. So it came out in 2018, and just wanted to catch up with you guys what you've been doing since with coronavirus. And you mentioned before that you had done some festivals, prior. So I guess take us through some of that and what's been going on with the band.
Yeah, sure. About, let's say about 6 months before the album came out, we played just a handful of shows just to let everybody know we were still around. Because the last album was 2013, so that's 5 years. So we did like Decibel Beer and Metal Fest in California, the Netherlands Death Fest, Maryland Death Fest, played a couple shows in Brooklyn, show in Belgium, and that's pretty much, they were around the time the album was coming out. We had a whole bunch of shows lined up for 2020, but they all, because, COVID.
Yeah.
So we rolled them over to this next coming year, well, 2021. But right now, it's just John and I basically writing and jamming out down here. The other guys are pretty far away. They're in like Long Island, upstate New York. So it's hard to get together right now. Just they're around people they can't really, that are, I guess, they have a weakened immune system, so they can't risk anything happening by them, inadvertently catching it, simply coming here. Mm-hmm. So right now they've been like writing stuff. We're trying to do the whole file share thing, which is something that we never really did before. So we're trying to adapt. It's a change in paradigm, but it isn't really right now. Everything is so unknown. It's just like you don't know if, okay, are we going to do a set? We can't even do a set list because we don't even know what's going on yet. And we can't do a set, you can't rehearse for it. It's a fucking nightmare. Yeah. It sucks.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is your second album, the one from 2018 is your second album on Profound Lore.
Yeah.
But I think in the middle of that, I Hate Records re-released some of your stuff, right?
Yeah, Caress of the Void, they reissued. They also, we did an EP with the Swedish band, Beneath the Frozen Soil.
Right.
That went back to, I think, near 2010 or 11. I could be mistaken on the year. I get years mixed up. There's so many releases. But they included our portion of that split EP on the Caress re-release, Digipack, and,
It was 2007, not because I have a good memory, but just because I have it written down.
Yeah, Caress was about, 2007.
So how did because I always am fascinated with splits and stuff. How did that come out, and how did you get hooked up with those guys from Sweden? Was that through the record label?
I think they reached out to us at one point after we released Antithesis. Nick was he was just back and forth with them, and just he was like, interested if we were doing anything new. And we had some material, and we were moving along with the writing, so he offered up, hey, I would love to do something with you guys. And we were like, let's do it, And so it was, if I remember, because Nick did most of that correspondence with I Hate. But it was just, one of those things where they came in at the right time, and they've been really good to us. They backed off. They weren't pressuring for certain date to come out. You didn't have to go through that whole process. So it was pretty straightforward. It wasn't, it wasn't very long either. It was pretty quick.
So how did you get hooked up with Profound Lore?
Actually, they had signed Disma, which is guys from Incantation, and a friend of mine, Bill Venner, who started the band with Daryl from Funeral, and Craig Pillard. He was doing, he was, you know, from Incantation. And Disma were putting a record out on Profound Lore, and Chris, I believe, had talked to Daryl, one of them, saying, you know, he would love to do something with Evoken. And we actually met up with him at the Maryland Death Fest, not too much after that. It was like, yeah, I think that was the first time we had, you know, I met him, Chris. Really great guy. He was just like, you know, let's just do it as a handshake. We don't need a contract. We don't need, you know, to get involved with anything like that. So it was just like the perfect thing. And he was like, he's a fan of the band. You know, it was like, it was the perfect fit. So it's continued. You know, hopefully it does continue, because they're a great label. You know, they got an ear for a lot of good music.
So can I assume that, like, your next record that you're writing now, you know, I'm sure you don't know when it's going to come out, because if you can't get into the studio with your bandmates.
Yeah, it's in the very early stages. You know, it's like, I don't even think we have completed songs. They're just a bunch of riffs that we're trying to piece together, and, you know, over time they'll change, but I hope we can have something written by next year, but that all depends on what happens with the summer.
Yeah.
You know, touring. If we wind up touring, then that's just going to delay that even more, which is fine. You know, to us, it's whatever time it takes to write it and make sure it's done well and that we're happy with it.
Sure.
You know, if that takes years, you know, we'll do it. Plus, it's doomed. There's like 13-minute songs.
Yeah.
A lot of material. We don't really repeat riffs that often in a song. We try to arrange it in a classical way.
Yeah, yeah. Now, is there a theme? I looked up the word hypnagogia, and it says the moment before sleep, right?
Yeah, there's two. There's hypnagogia and there's hypnopompic.
Okay.
So one is when you're between the state of awake and asleep. Okay. But you can still have like the hallucinations of, you know, something, I don't know if it's something that you would necessarily have to dream, but whatever, consciously, subconsciously, whatever you want to call it. There's like you have that that hallucination, and hypnopompic is the, you know, the exact opposite. It's going from a sleep state to a awake state, and having, you know, seeing or hearing things that you think might have happened, but you're just like, oh, you think you hear a loud bang or you see something, or, you know, and you're just kind of puzzled, like, did I just see that, or is, you know, so in the context of the lyrics and of the theme of the album, which is based on World War I, and the mental effects it had on the soldiers, that I read through a lot of the journals, a lot of soldiers from both sides. And, you know, we always hear about the violence. You always hear about how, you know, it was the industrial, what am I looking for? Killing on an industrial level. Yeah. You know, everybody addresses that, but they never really go into the psyche that affects each person that's involved. And
as an individual.
Horrific conditions.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said you looked at letters written by soldiers?
Yeah. There's if you go online, there's a few sites. You can see the journals of the soldiers that kept, you know, meticulous notes while they were out and about. Because what happened was, during the war, they had to essentially write two different things. They had to write a letter to home, but that was scrutinized before it came in or went out. So they couldn't really go into how they felt personally. So they wrote these journals out describing their conditions and describing how they lost friends, describing how they were lied to. You know, at the time it was nobody even considered a world war. All sides of that war, it was essentially come join join the military. We'll train you. You'll meet good people. You'll make new friends. You may be in another country for a few weeks, but there's not going to be anything really to be concerned with. Mm-hmm. And then that changed when they got there, and they realized how bad it really was, and they weren't just there to make friends.
Wow.
Yeah, it's the stories. If you ever go, I highly recommend it, because there's things in there that you don't see in movies. You don't. Documentaries may cover it, but not everything.
Yeah, sure. Oh yeah, I'll check it out. Yeah.
So, do you have a hand in writing the lyrics, or do you guys discuss the themes, the lyrical themes?
I write the lyrics.
Okay.
And then once I have, they're the last to be done. So first it's the music, and then whatever I'm hearing as we get closer to finishing the album, I'll just listen to rehearsals or what have you, and just got to kind of feel what I'm picturing in my head. And so I'll write things out, edit them, cut things out, and then I'll give it to John, and John will take them and adapt them to the song the way he wants. So the lyric may say something completely one sentence, but he may repeat a word here or there, but you're not going to see it on the linear notes, on the lyric sheet. So he makes it personal so that it can really fit into the music.
One other thing that came up, I've been wanting to mention, or we sort of emailed back and forth about, total coincidence, but we actually just ended up doing an interview with Vivisect.
Oh yeah. Randy's been.
And talking to, we were talking to Randy, and he mentioned playing with you guys, which I had to sort of get really into Metal Archives to find that, and I had no idea, and I was like, I was like, we got an interview with these guys coming up, and I didn't think to get involved. But so I guess talk about how he got involved. It sounds like Chris maybe can't can't really tour much.
Yeah, Chris, his career as a school teacher, it limits what he can and cannot do. So when we realized that he couldn't do all the shows that we were getting set up, it was just the idea of like, okay, who do we get? Who would he in this area is a fan of this music, knows about our music, and can play aggressive but also have finesse. Yeah, Randy played in a death metal band with John. It was an older death metal band that John did called Grim Legion. Pretty straightforward death metal. And when we were looking, we needed somebody to not replace, but just fill in for Chris, because he couldn't do a lot of the shows now. John was just like, let's have him in. Let's see if he's a fan. And he's really good. So Randy came. We gave him a couple of the songs to learn when he comes down, and he picked it up like really quick. And it was just like, wow, it went a lot smoother than I anticipated. Because it's like, yeah, you can find somebody that's really, really good, but they're an asshole, and you don't want to do it. You definitely want to have somebody that's, on the same level and, very, just fits right in. You don't have to struggle to see eye to eye with them,
Yeah, I got some friends who are teachers, and they get off the summers, but then the understanding is like you don't take off during the school year, really.
Exactly. And, Don has that issue too, because, he's a school teacher. And so he gets the summers off, and we try to arrange to coincide with his time off, but you can't dictate like festivals and, certain areas, certain times of the year are just dead as far as playing live. So like if he has winter break, You know, we try to do something then, but not a lot of people go to shows because they're out shopping or they have to put money aside to do, you know, what have you. It's the holidays. So we run the same problem with Don as well. I shouldn't say problem. It's just something we have to get around, you know. But he makes so does Chris, makes every effort to do it. Even if there's a slim chance of them doing a particular show, they'll stretch themselves so they can do it, even if it means they're going to catch a little shit at work. But, you know, they love the music, they love to play. So, happens.
So you mentioned Incantation. I assume you guys have played with them.
Not as in the band or a show,
we like shows. Yeah, we you know.
Oh yeah.
We like to hear about who likes to play with who and what you know, what bands have you been playing with or do you enjoy playing with?
Yeah, Incantation's top. I mean, it's got to be one of the top ones. You know, I think we've done maybe two shows with them. One was in Brooklyn with Darkada. That was a great show. We played with My Dying Bride very last minute.
Oh, wow, really? Okay.
Yeah,
cool. That's really
we were back here in, I don't know if you remember, in, what was it, 97, I think it was, they were touring with Dio.
Oh, I think I remember that.
Yeah, and they had their shows with Dio, but then they had 3 dates that were open toward the end. And a guy that was helping us out at the time booking shows, he said, you know, he booked a show because he himself was leaving for Europe. He wanted to see My Dying Bride before he left. So he set up a show in upstate, like Westchester or something, in New York, with, you know, for us to play with them. That was pretty surreal.
Yeah, I would have loved to see that show. I would have remembered if I had seen that and missed it, but I don't think.
Yeah, there wasn't many people there because it was so last minute. It wasn't really promoted. You know, very little. You know, it was, God, there would be 30, 40 people there.
Wow.
Maybe. Yeah. So it was in a place it's not hard. It's not difficult to get to, but it's not easy. Like if in New York City, you know, where you could catch mass transit. So, that was cool. I mean, shit, there's a million bands that we played with that I think about it now and I'm like, wow. You know, my 15-year-old self would be like pinching himself.
Yeah.
So maybe talk about
what?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go on, Eric.
I was gonna say, yeah. So, you guys have been a band. Is it? Tell me if I'm wrong. Since '94.
92. 94 was when Atra-mors released Shades of Night Descending.
Okay.
They did a license run. We recorded it in 93. We formed in 92, then went through a string of months where we couldn't find other members. It was just very hard to get people that were into this music in this area.
Sure.
And then, I think it was 93, we put it out under our own label. And then I was ordering stuff from Atra-mors in France. And I just happened to mention we had a band. And he was like, oh yeah, send it. Let's hear it. And I sent it out, and this is before the internet, so it was all snail mail. And you open a letter to get 100 flyers that come popping out. So it was a little bit of period, so you didn't hear back right away. You know, it isn't like it is now. And I thought maybe he would write back, oh, maybe someday down the line. Or, hey, when you have more material. But no, I got the mail, and it was just a license agreement.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay. So, yeah, that was released in 94 with a different cover.
Yeah, that definitely brought back a nostalgic moment for me because I definitely remember getting those letters. And just for people who are maybe a little bit younger, when you're saying flyers, they're not like big flyers. They're little 1/8 of a piece of paper, but you would get a demo tape from like Europe or whatever, and and then you'd spill it out, and it would literally have, you know, because they're doing like flyer exchange programs. They'd literally have, it would be like a confetti parade, these little fucking flyers that would just go all over the fucking place.
Oh my God! It was like you open it up and, you know, all these stuff with, and I used to like cut the stamps and keep the stamps, or in the very beginning when people would send like money, like it was always like well hidden cash, no check.
Oh yeah, well hidden. I remember that. I remember seeing
that. Yeah, so it was like the flyer things. They cracked me up. There's so many of them in those things. I just remember being like, what the fuck? It's worn out.
I get these letters and it would be like, please return my stamps. I've coated them with something so I can wipe off the postmark.
Yes. Yeah.
I got it a ton of times.
Really? Wow.
From like Central America. It would always be like, it would
That's
be
crazy.
Like my glossy, I need my glossy stamps back.
Actually, we shouldn't be admitting that. Isn't that postal fraud now?
For, you know, if
Careful.
I ever go back to Ecuador,
Well, that's funny. What do you attribute to the longevity of the band? That's a long time that you guys have been a band that kept going and putting out releases and playing shows and all that.
God, you know, it's still new, it's still fresh, and really, it's trying to find the right word to use. But it's as exciting as it was for us as it was day one. You know, just the vibe of playing even a riff, and you just get goosebumps. You know, and you just the power behind it, and it's when you have people that really, really love playing this in this band and these songs and just the music in general. You know, it's not that hard. Plus, we're not like a band that you know, their careers were based on, you know, that's what they were doing for a living. You know, those bands, they eventually get sick of each other and, you know, break away. But because it's not our career, so we don't get on each other's nerves that much. But no, we're really good friends. You know, people come and go, and I think that also has a positive impact on the writing process, because now you have a new person who brings new influence and different ideas that you may not have even considered.
Sure.
You know, so yeah, it has a lot to do with it too. Definitely.
You mentioned the time between albums. I guess it was sort of maybe like 2012 to 2018. Were you like, was it just slow going? Were you on hiatus, or, you know, what? We were still going. We had toured in 2013. Actually, 2013 was like, it was the most shows we've ever played since the beginning. You know, so we had all these shows we were playing that we normally don't prepare for, and that obviously when you're trying to set up a set list and rehearse it and get everything down, it leaves little time to write anything. But once we got through those shows, the cycle of shows, we started writing, and we were going to a monthly room. It's a rehearsal space that you pay for by the hour. So we were rehearsing there, and when you're doing that once or twice a week, it takes time, and then a lot of, you know, we constantly take things out and replace it with another riff and then change things, and it has its ebbs and flows, you know. So we were still active, you know, very active. It just, we weren't playing shows, we weren't really doing anything but writing. Maybe talk a little bit about your influences. You know, I've been a fan of Doom for a long time, so I hear some stuff, and then, you know, I even with the music that I've played in the past, it's funny because people want to attribute it to one thing or the other, and sometimes it's like, no, I don't necessarily am influenced by that band, but we have the same influences, therefore we see the same. So I guess talk about some of the bands you consider influences and the ones you consider contemporaries.
Well, temporary. Well, I'll answer the bands that have, still influenced us till today. And it's not just metal. There's a lot of other, like Portishead, love Portishead. Dead Can Dance, Sadness, for bands like Cult of Sanguine. They're like Italian gothic, I guess you would call it. I always get the image of an Italian horror movie. You have Disembowelment, Thorgothon, the three: Paradise Lost, My Dying Bride, and Anathema. Disembowelment, like I said, Winter. Those stay with us. I don't know if we have any temporary ones though, because we're always.
Okay.
It seems like it always circles or back around to different things that we've been influenced since day one, and we tweak it a little bit so it doesn't sound like it's just repeating itself album after album. So like it's hard. I don't know if there's any. I honestly can't say there's any temporary.
Well, I was saying contemporary, like bands that you weren't necessarily influenced by, but you were just around the same time and maybe shared some influences and therefore just happened to sound the same.
Yeah.
So you might not have influenced each other.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot. There's let's see. There's I think like maybe Unholy, Beyond Dawn, Monumentum. There's a lot that, when you can hear a lot of Monumentum even till today, but during, I think, Embrace is when we really were listening to Monumentum. So, that had an effect on that album. Even like Triptychon, on atra-mors. It's not a constant, but it was there at the same time. Not much else. I can't off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's funny. You mentioned Triptychon, and I really feel like with the Celtic Frost stuff that when you listen to it now, maybe it doesn't sound as doomy because bands have taken it to a new level, but back in the 80s when you were in doom bands, like that was fucking doom, like To Megatherion and stuff.
Yeah, that Hellhammer, to me, I mean, it has everything, but it was always doomy. Yeah, I mean, God, I'm trying to think of what's my track of thought.
And it's funny. This is definitely not the first interview where we've heard like Dead Can Dance.
Yeah, you hear that constant. I mean, there's a lot of. Let's see. Can't remember her name off the top of my head. Bjork.
Okay.
Bjork is another one. There was some things I think like Shape of Despair that had a little bit when that first album came out. I kind of trickled into Evoken a little. But yeah, just so Triptychon, I think it's just more for the aggressive, more than the doomy. Because we always like to keep that within the music, not just straightforward, everything slow. It had, it's got to be heavy, it's got to be slow, but it needs that aggression too. And it needs to be hateful, and powerful.
Yeah, no, and definitely, I you guys listening to your stuff, it like there's some of it is a little bit melodic, but I think the sweet spot for me with you guys is that just disgustingly pounding,
Ugly.
low, fucking down-tuned, miserable riffs.
Yeah, and I mean that's not a knock on any the bands with melody or anything, but our music's more dark than somber. It's meant to have an ugly look to it. Mm-hmm. It allows us to channel what we feel through the music. And the world's an ugly place, so we wanted to play the soundtrack of this ugly place with ugly music.
Yeah. Although you guys really
oh.
liked the all the violin and keyboard, how you did the arrangements on Hypnagogia a lot. I think that's really well placed and thought out, and it just adds a level to it.
Yeah, we used them on atra-mors too, and he hadn't heard us before. He never listened to anything. He would come in. We had everything written down. Steve, he was our producer engineer. He would give him ideas. Hey, why don't we try this here? Why don't we try that there? Or just try dragging just one note, or it'll add a little bit of an effect on it. And he'll just improvise. A lot of things he improvises too.
Wow.
Yeah, it makes everything. You want to have a full sound, larger than life. It's been done a million times before with violins and cello and what have you. But if you do it right and you don't overdo it, it can have an impact. And that was the goal for that. It's like, put it on, but don't overdo it. Because once you overdo it, you lose the impact of what, when a part comes in and then it drops out, and then all of a sudden you hear it later down the line, it's just like, oof.
It's funny. I was about to ask like the exact same question, Eric, but I was wondering, like, I mean, I'm assuming that just because they're uncredited, that the violin is mostly done with samples. Single note samples. What?
There's no samples. Is that what you're asking? Like, there's samples?
Do you have a live violinist, or?
It's a live. We had a live cello player. There's no violin.
Okay.
Actually, that's all cello, believe it or not. Just played at a higher register.
That's cool.
He played a couple times with us live. But yeah, it's just him and his cello. Live. We don't try and play it live. We have never really, other than a couple times, used it. But he was there to play it. As opposed to a sample of it, like a backtrack. A lot of times it can get lost in all the low frequencies. So when you play live, even like sample or backing tracks of it, it gets lost. So yeah, but that's all cello, no violin.
Okay, cool.
Great player too. He's really talented.
Yeah, I know, because the technology has just come so far. I mean, the stuff that I would have killed to do in like '95, all of a sudden in like 2001, you could play violin on a keyboard, and if you did it the right way, it would actually sound like not so synthetic. Yeah,
it's gotten better over the years. I'll say that, because it used to sound really horrible. But there's just something about a keyboard, or whatever you use this as a means to have as a backtrack to what you're doing live. There's something about that nasally sound of a bow against a string.
Oh,
it just has that. It just like you feel it kind of come through. Well, with me, like I feel like it's almost like a wave that just comes through you, and it's just. It just sounds human. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Keyboards, samples, they're going to stay a certain way. There's no like digging in. You hear that nasally sound, but then they might loosen up a little bit, inadvertently on the bow, and so it cuts out a little bit, and it comes digging back in. You can't get that with like a keyboard, even live even. So we try to avoid that. If he does use any cello or anything, or he'll add a little bit more on, like, over it, so you don't really make it out. You know, we try to avoid using any of that, any synthetic sound of a cello. Mm-hmm. You know, if we'd rather just use what's recorded as a backtrack.
Sure.
And then I guess I was gonna, you guys also have super cool album covers. So I was gonna ask, like, maybe how you go about finding your artists.
Yeah.
I think I don't think they're photographs. All of them seem to be like illustrations, but they don't, you know, they have a little bit of a photographic quality to them.
Yeah, yeah. The only one that was a photograph is Embrace the Emptiness.
That's what the
woman where she's reaching out. What's that?
I think it was like a cemetery or something.
Yeah, it was actually a picture from, of all places, our old bass player Steve found it on Time magazine. It was a picture of an Afghan woman mourning her husband's death. So, and he just showed it. He's like, "Look at this." It was just like, oh, it blew us away. You know, that's the only one as a photo, but we gave it to somebody to mess with a little bit, so it's not the exact thing, same thing. You know, we never worried. I think we worried once, like, oh, what happens if the photographer sees that we're using his material? And it's like, ah, fuck it. He's not coming looking for an extreme doom band and saying, "That's my album, that's my photograph, pay me," you know. So we altered it a little bit, but yeah, they're all different artists. Beksinski, we used him on AOL. Stephen O'Malley did Quietus. There's no, yeah, that's the only one we had a picture of would be Embrace. The rest are all just, we give them an idea, mostly just feed them the music. Here's the music, here's the lyrics. You know, this is a general idea of what we're looking for, but we give them, complete creative control to do what they want.
Yeah, I think the album cover with the monoliths was particularly memorable for me.
Yeah, that was, I think that was for Shades of Night Descending reissue. Is that the one with the reissue of Shades?
Could be. You know what? I just remember it and talking about it. I don't have that in my notes, but.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that's what that was. That was done by the same artist who did atra-mors. We had a re-release of Shades, but we had to change the cover. We couldn't use the same one we did for Attic Poussière or the one we used previously on our own release of it, because they were doing a re-release. He was just like, "We need new artwork." You know, so we got in touch with him, and he was just like, "Yeah, I'll try and come up with something." You know, so he's done that. He did the split EP with Beneath the Frozen Soil. He did atra-mors. So yeah, it was really cool. I was just like, I was really conflicted about what to use for that reissue. It was just like, I don't want to take away from the music itself just because it's years later. Doesn't mean our visuals change of the music. It's still the same as we seen it, in 1993. So, and I was just like, look at the lyrics, see what you can do. And yeah, it's like one of my favorites, actually. You bring it up. Yeah, it's cool. I wish we could get a shirt done of it. Maybe we will. Who knows? We'll see.
4-color shirts are always, they're a little trickier, but
yeah.
Let's see, what else do you got, Eric? I'm looking through my chicken scratch trying to figure out.
I think that's all I got question wise. I look forward to the new album for sure, whenever that'll be, or if the shows get rescheduled, definitely looking forward to that.
They're all rescheduled. We have a tour for Europe in end of July, beginning of August, around that time period.
Okay. Okay.
Like Brutal Assault Fest we're supposed to be doing.
Okay.
Metal Days.
Okay.
And then we have a bunch of shows lined up, and then Russia, Ukraine. Back here we have shows that are coming up in Atlanta, Pittsburgh, DC, and then Mexico.
Oh, wow.
So all that's moved to 2021, but
Okay.
now it's just we don't know when's that going to happen.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, and especially you mentioned some of your bandmates having immunocompromised, whatever relatives or people they know. I feel like some of these shows they may do them on the down low or whatever, but it's going to be a rough ride. I think
it's more straightforward, but that could change.
Yeah.
Where in DC are you playing if it gets rescheduled? What?
Atlas Brewery.
Oh yeah, I know that.
Yeah, we did a show there for Decibel, the pre-fest.
Oh, cool.
For the Beer Metal Fest in Philly.
Okay.
So they had the area where all the kegs are and everything, that little stage there.
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah, it's.
Yeah, it's fucking great guys.
Yeah.
Great guys. So yeah, we're supposed to play there. It was July last, 2020, so I think it's July 2021, but
Okay.
everything's still up in the air, man. But we're still adding more shows, like going back out to the West Coast to Oregon, which is fucking phenomenal.
Is that the Terror Fest? The Terror Fest there or no?
I forget the name off the top of my head. But
it's part of a festival in Oregon, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that might be that Terror Fest, yeah.
It's that's a great place to play. And everywhere we've been, man, they're into Doom. Holy shit! It's just like really, really cool people, down to earth. And they're just they show their support is really, really cool to see. It's like it's not just maybe I'll go. They all come. So it's just like, and then we got to play with Shape of Despair that show, so that was really cool.
Awesome.
So yeah, hopefully we'll be back out there in Chicago, Texas, North Carolina again, upstate New York, Pennsylvania. Well, we're playing Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. We have that, so they're there. It's just a matter of what's going to happen with COVID.
Sure.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye out for it for sure.
Yeah, I definitely will let you know. We'll post it and everything, but I'll send an email beforehand, so that way have it. I hope we know something soon.
Cool. Yeah, I guess we'll just end up with just the hypnagogia. Hypnagogia.
There you go. I got tongue-tied. I used to call it hypnagogia. I was just like, I don't think I'm pronouncing that right. So I checked it, and I was like, no, it's hypnagogia. But yeah, it's a
bands that I can't fucking say their name, and I've been listening to them for years. So
yeah, I hear you.
But
if anyone hasn't checked out Hypnagogia, check it out.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because it definitely made a lot of. It made a lot of year-end lists in 2018, and for a reason, it's a really great album. It's really great.
Yeah, now it's on vinyl and cassette too.
Cool.
Shades of Night Descending's out on cassette now too.
Okay.
That's making a big, that comeback. So it's kind of really, it's cool to see that. Quietus is on vinyl. Things that we never got a chance to do, and now all that's coming out. But yeah, Hypnagogia, we have the vinyl cassette. We have other stuff we're working on. See what happens.
Cool. And yeah, I noticed you, like, some bands have one Bandcamp page, but for you, it seems like a lot of your stuff is on the different label Bandcamp pages. So I'll definitely post all the links in the description, so people, if they're having trouble finding one or the other, they'll.
Yeah, we have our own site too, website, evokendoom.com.
Oh, okay. Yeah, cool.
Yep. Yeah, Bandcamp. I think it must be just the labels that put, because we don't run the Bandcamp. We have the link on there, but it's not specific to us. So I guess it just, whatever label puts it out, they have the page for it. So that's why there's so many of them. There's so many re-releases, I lost track.
Yeah.
which is a good thing. I'm not complaining.
Yeah, no,
Sure,
yeah.
sure.
You know.
Yeah, excellent.
All right, well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's a privilege, man.
Really appreciate it.
Really
Thanks.
appreciate it.
Bye.